3 in the morning has a particular quality of silence. Not the peaceful quiet of evening, but something deeper, a stillness so complete you can hear your own pulse. And if you're someone who feels deeply, if you carry the emotional weather of everyone around you, you know this hour intimately. Your eyes open. No alarm, no sound, no reason. Just sudden, complete wakefulness in the dark. Perhaps you've been here before. Many times before. You lie there wondering if you should try to sleep again. But you already know you won't. Not for a while. There's something about this waking that feels different from ordinary restlessness. It's not your mind racing through tomorrow's to-do list. It's not anxiety about a specific problem. It's deeper than that. It feels like someone is standing just outside your awareness, waiting. Like there's a message trying to reach you from a place you can't quite name. Your body is tired, but your consciousness is sharp, almost painfully alert. And if you're honest, underneath the frustration of being awake, there's something else. A recognition, a sense that this waking matters. This isn't insomnia in the ordinary sense. It's not racing thoughts about tomorrow's meeting or replaying yesterday's conversation. It's something else entirely, a feeling that someone is gently knocking on a door inside you that you didn't know existed. Maybe you've tried everything to fix this. Sleep supplements, meditation apps, cutting out caffeine therapy, sleep hygiene protocols. Some things help a little. Nothing solves it completely. Because what's happening here isn't primarily a sleep problem, it's a soul problem. And your soul doesn't care about your sleep schedule. If this resonates with you, if you've spent countless nights staring at the ceiling while the world sleeps, wondering why your sensitivity won't let you rest, this message is for you. Now let's be clear about something from the start. The title you might have seen suggests Carl Jung made specific claims about empaths waking at 3 in the morning. The truth is more nuanced. Jung never used the modern term empath, and he didn't write treatises specifically about the 3 o'clock hour. But what he did do, and this is what matters, is map the human psyche with such precision that his framework explains exactly what's happening in these midnight moments. Jung spent his life studying how the unconscious mind communicates with us, particularly when our conscious defenses are down. He understood that sensitive, intuitive people receive messages from deeper layers of the psyche that others might miss entirely. And he knew that nighttime, especially the hours when sleep should be deepest, is when the soul speaks most clearly. So while the internet might oversimplify this into a catchy phrase, the underlying truth runs much deeper. What we're exploring together isn't pop psychology. It's a genuine psychological and spiritual phenomenon that Jung's work illuminates with remarkable clarity. For those of us who absorb the feelings of others like a sponge absorbs water, who walk into rooms and instantly sense the emotional temperature, who carry burdens that aren't even ours, the 3 a.m. wake-up call isn't random. It's purposeful, urgent even. Your psyche is trying to get your attention. Before we dive deeper, if this resonates with your soul's journey, please hit that like button and subscribe for more transformational content. Your support helps this message reach other souls who need to hear it. Let's start with what happens during your waking hours, because to understand the night, we need to understand the day. If you're highly sensitive, you live in a different reality than most people. You don't just notice emotions, you embody them. Someone walks into the room anxious, and suddenly your chest tightens. A friend shares their grief, and you carry it home with you. You can sense what people need before they ask. Read the room with uncanny accuracy. Feel the weight of unspoken pain hovering in conversations. This isn't weakness. It's not being too sensitive or overthinking. It's a fundamental difference in how your nervous system processes information. Research in neuroscience has shown that highly sensitive people have more active mirror neurons and deeper processing in areas of the brain related to empathy and awareness. Your nervous system literally picks up more data from the environment than others do. And while it can be a profound gift, it comes with a price that most people don't see. By the end of an average day, you've not only lived your own emotional experience, but you've also processed dozens of micro-interactions. The cashier's exhaustion, your coworker's hidden anxiety, your partner's unspoken frustration, your friend's masked loneliness. Most people experience their own emotional weather. You experience everyone's climate. And here's where the trouble starts. Somewhere along the way, maybe in childhood, maybe through cultural conditioning, maybe through early experiences of being rewarded for caretaking, you learn that your sensitivity comes with a job description. That feeling others' pain means you're responsible for fixing it. That noticing needs means you must meet them. That your value is measured by how much you can hold for others. Jung understood this dynamic through his concept of the persona. The mask we wear to meet the world's expectations. For everyone, the persona serves a function. It helps us navigate social situations, maintain professional boundaries, fit into our roles. But for sensitive people, something dangerous often happens. The persona doesn't just become a mask we wear. It becomes who we think we are. You become the helper, the strong one, the person everyone comes to, the one who understands, who doesn't judge, who always has space for one more person's pain. And slowly, quietly, without even noticing, you start to believe that this is your worth, that your value lies in how much you can hold for others. Let me tell you how this happens, because it's rarely a conscious choice. Often it starts young. Maybe you were the child who could sense when mom was sad and learned to cheer her up. Maybe you were the peacemaker in a chaotic household, absorbing everyone's tension to keep things calm. Maybe you discovered early that being helpful, being understanding, being the one who didn't add to anyone's burden earned you the love and approval you craved. So you developed a persona, Jung's term for the social mask that was built around caretaking. And it worked. People loved you for it. They came to you. They needed you. And that need felt like love, even though somewhere deep inside, you wondered if anyone would stay if you stopped being useful. The persona became more sophisticated over time. You learned exactly what each person needed from you. With your anxious friend, you became calm and reassuring. With your overwhelmed parent, you became capable and undemanding. With your struggling partner, you became endlessly patient and supportive. You shape-shifted so seamlessly that you forgot you were doing it. And here's the insidious part, that the world rewarded you for this. You got praised for being so understanding, so selfless, so strong. Moeren. You got validation for never being the problem, never making demands, never being too much. The message was clear, this version of you, the giving, accommodating, boundaryless version, this is the lovable one. But the cost was steep, even if you didn't see it yet. Every time you shape-shifted to meet someone else's needs, you moved a little further from knowing your own. Every time you prioritized someone's comfort over your truth, you sent a message to your psyche. Their feelings matter more than mine. Every time you swallowed resentment to keep the peace, you fed the shadow that would one day demand to be heard. There's a line Jung wrote that cuts to the heart of this. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. What he meant is that the life that works for someone else, the boundaries, the emotional availability, the level of giving might be completely wrong for you. But as an empath, you've probably spent years trying to wear shoes that don't fit, wondering why every step hurts. During the day you manage. You show up, you hold space, you give and give and give. Your persona performs brilliantly. But underneath, in the parts of yourself, you've learned to ignore something else is happening. Jung called this the shadow, and it's one of his most misunderstood concepts. The shadow isn't evil. It isn't the dark side in any sinister sense. It's simply the parts of yourself that you've had to exile in order to maintain your identity as the caring, understanding, always available person. For empaths, the shadow often contains things like anger at being taken for granted, resentment about emotional labor that goes unrecognized, fear of being ordinary or unneeded, exhaustion from carrying weight that isn't yours. And perhaps most painfully, the quiet terror of asking, if I stop helping, will anyone love me for who I am? These aren't shameful feelings. They're human feelings. But because they don't fit the story of who you're supposed to be, you push them down. You tell yourself you're being selfish for even having them. You double down on giving more, being more, understanding, holding more space. And this is where 3 a.m. comes in. The insight that echoes through Jung's work is this: one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You cannot heal what you refuse to see. You cannot integrate what you continuously exile. And your psyche, in its profound wisdom, will not let you ignore your shadow forever, so it wakes you. At 3 in the morning, when your defenses are low, when the persona has clocked out for the night, when the world is quiet enough that you might actually listen, your unconscious speaks. But why this particular hour? There's actually some fascinating psychology and physiology at work here. Cortisol, your stress hormone, naturally dips to its lowest point between 2 and 4 a.m. This is when your body is supposed to be in its deepest rest. But it's also when anxiety, if you're carrying it, becomes most noticeable. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that rationalizes, justifies, and maintains your conscious defenses, is least active. In other words, 3 a.m. is when your true emotional state becomes undeniable. Symbolically, this hour has held meaning across cultures for centuries. It's been called the witching hour, the hour of the wolf, the time when the veil between worlds is thinnest. Whether you take that literally or metaphorically doesn't matter. What matters is this: there's something about the deep night that strips away pretense and brings us face to face with truth. For the empath, for the person who spends all day managing everyone else's emotional reality, 3 a.m. is when your own emotional reality demands attention. And it will keep demanding it night after night until you answer the call. To understand what's really happening at 3 a.m., we need to understand how Jung saw the human psyche. And I promise you, this isn't abstract philosophy. This is a map to finding yourself again. Jung proposed that our minds exist in layers. At the surface, we have the conscious mind, everything you're aware of, thinking about, deliberately choosing. Just below that, we have the personal unconscious, your individual repository of forgotten memories, repressed feelings and experiences you haven't fully processed. But deeper still, Jung described something revolutionary: the collective unconscious, the inherited patterns and archetypes shared by all humanity. And at the very center of this entire system, coordinating everything, trying to bring all the pieces into harmony, is what Jung called the self. The self is not your ego. It's not your identity or your personality. It's something far more profound, the organizing principle of your entire psyche, the deeper intelligence that guides your growth and wholeness. And here's what matters for understanding your 3 a.m. wake-ups. The self is always working toward your wholeness. Always. Even when it's inconvenient. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when you wish it would just let you sleep. There's a line Jung wrote that perfectly captures this: who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. During your waking hours, you're looking outside constantly, reading others, responding to their needs, managing their feelings. You're living in a dream state where other people's realities feel more real than your own. But at 3 a.m., that dynamic reverses. You're forced to look inside. And what you find there, what your unconscious has been trying to tell you, is that you're losing yourself. The concept Jung emphasized throughout his work was this: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Think about what this means for you. All those patterns you keep repeating, saying yes when you mean no, giving more than you have, attracting people who need fixing, feeling exhausted but unable to stop. What if those aren't character flaws? What if they're unconscious patterns running your life precisely because you haven't made them conscious? Your 3 a.m. wake-up is the unconscious trying to become conscious. It's your psyche's way of saying, I will not let you ignore this anymore. So what exactly is it trying to tell you? The messages vary for each person, but certain themes appear consistently for empaths and highly sensitive people. Listen carefully, because you might recognize your own story here. The first message is often about accumulated emotional debris. You've spent the day absorbing other people's anxiety, grief, frustration, and fear. You've listened to their problems, held space for their processing, carried their emotional weight. And where did all of that go? It didn't just disappear. It's stored in your body, your nervous system, your psyche. At 3 a.m., your unconscious is essentially saying, we need to process all of this. We can't carry it anymore. Think about it this way. If you spent all day carrying physical objects for other people, their groceries, their furniture, their heavy bags, you'd understand why your muscles ached at night. You'd know you needed to put everything down and rest. But emotional labor is invisible, so we pretend it doesn't weigh anything. Your 3 a.m. wake-up is your psyche saying, actually, this weighs a ton and we're exhausted. The second message is about unexpressed needs. While you've been tending to everyone else, your own needs have been sitting in the waiting room of your consciousness, patient at first, then increasingly desperate. The need for rest, for reciprocity, for someone to hold space for you, for permission to be imperfect, for relationships where you can receive and not just give. At 3 a.m., these needs finally get their turn to speak, and they speak in different ways. Sometimes it's a vague sense of emptiness or longing. Sometimes it's a specific memory of a moment when you needed support and instead gave it. Sometimes it's just a question that echoes in the silence. When is it my turn? When do I get to be held? The third message, and often the most uncomfortable, is about identity. Your unconscious is asking, who are you when you're not helping someone? Who are you when you're not needed? Who are you when you set a boundary and someone walks away? These questions feel dangerous because somewhere along the line, you learned that your worth is conditional, that love comes through usefulness, that if you're not solving someone's problem, you have no value. I've worked with countless people who can tell me in detail who everyone else is, their friends' dreams, their family members' struggles, their colleagues' personalities. But when I ask, who are you? They go blank. They can tell me their role, mother, therapist, friend, partner. But stripped of those functions, they don't know. The persona has become so convincing that the person underneath has nearly disappeared. The fourth message is about the resentment you won't admit you feel. Because you do feel it. Not all the time, maybe not even most of the time, but it's there. Resentment at being taken for granted, or at one-sided relationships, at people who lean but never lift, at always being the strong one while secretly feeling like you're barely holding it together. This resentment shows up in small ways. You might not have connected the slight irritation when someone's name appears on your phone. The heaviness before social commitments, the fantasy of disappearing where no one can find you, the exhaustion that feels deeper than physical tiredness, or the tears that come unexpectedly over something small. This resentment doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human. But because it conflicts with your self-image, as the endlessly compassionate one, you've pushed it into the shadow. And the shadow will not stay silent forever. There's often a fifth message too, and it's about grief. Grief for the life you didn't live while you were busy living for everyone else. Grief for the dreams you postponed indefinitely. Grief for the version of yourself you abandoned to become acceptable. Grief for all the times you said yes when your soul was screaming no. This grief is legitimate. It deserves acknowledgement. And at 3 a.m., when your defenses are down, it finally surfaces. Jung offered a profound metaphor for this process of transformation through his study of alchemy. Medieval alchemists claimed to turn lead into gold, but Jung understood this as a psychological metaphor. The lead was the unconscious, unrefined parts of ourselves. The gold was integrated wholeness. And the process of transformation happened in stages. The first stage, negredo, or blackening, is the death of old forms. For the empath, this is the death of the savior complex, the helper identity, the belief that your worth comes from being needed. It feels like darkness because something you built your entire life around is dying. But this darkness isn't evil. It's fertile. It's the composted soil from which new growth comes. The second stage, albedo, or whitening, is clarity. The clouds part. You begin to see patterns you couldn't see before. You recognize how you've been abandoning yourself. You understand that your anger isn't the opposite of love. It's love's boundary keeper. You realize that saying no isn't cruelty. It's clarity. The white light of albedo isn't harsh. It's honest. The third stage, rubedo, or reddening, is integration. The red represents blood warmth, life force returning. You find that you can still be compassionate, but now compassion has a spine. You can still feel deeply, but you're no longer drowning in others' emotions. You can still give, but now you give from overflow, not from emptiness. This is what Jung's work on Carl Jung, empath, and personal development ultimately points toward: not the elimination of sensitivity, but its integration with strength. And here's the profound truth Jung kept circling back to. In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order. Your 3 a.m. wake-ups aren't random. They're not punishment. They're not evidence that something's wrong with you. They're the cosmos within the chaos. They're the secret order trying to reveal itself. Your psyche is not trying to torment you. It's trying to save you. So what do you actually do with this information? How do you work with these midnight wake-ups instead of suffering through them? First, we need to shift the fundamental relationship you have with these moments. Most people treat 3 a.m. wakefulness as a problem to solve, an enemy to defeat. You lie there thinking, why can't I just sleep like a normal person? You fight it, resent it, see it as evidence of something broken. But what if it's not broken? What if it's working exactly as it should? Jung developed a practice he called active imagination, a way of consciously dialoguing with the unconscious. This wasn't meditation in the traditional sense. It was a deliberate conversation with the images, feelings, and symbols that arise from deeper layers of the psyche. Here's how you can adapt this for your 3 a.m. wake-ups. When you find yourself awake, instead of immediately reaching for your phone or trying to force yourself back to sleep, try this. Sit up. Turn on a dim light. Get your journal. And ask your unconscious directly, what are you trying to tell me? Then write. Don't edit, don't judge, don't try to make it make sense. Just let whatever wants to come through flow onto the page. You might be surprised by what emerges. Often it's not what you expected. Sometimes it's a feeling you didn't know you were holding. Sometimes it's a memory you forgot. Sometimes it's a truth you've been avoiding. The key to active imagination is this: you're not trying to analyze or interpret in the moment. You're simply creating space for the unconscious to speak in its own language. Later in daylight, you can reflect on what came through. But in the moment, you're just listening. The second practice is what Jung called shadow work, and for empaths, this is transformative. Remember, the shadow contains all the parts of yourself you've exiled to maintain your identity. For you, that often means anger, selfishness, need, limitation, and the desire to not always be available. The work isn't to become these things in a destructive way. It's to reclaim them as legitimate parts of your humanity. Because here's what Jung understood. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. When you refuse to acknowledge your own capacity for anger, you can't truly hold space for others' anger. When you deny your own needs, you can't genuinely honor others' needs, you only enable their dependence. When you pretend you have unlimited capacity, you can't model healthy boundaries for anyone else. Let me give you a concrete example of what shadow work looks like in practice. Imagine you have a friend who calls you every time they're in crisis, which is often. You always answer, you always listen, you always help them process. But lately, when you see their name on your phone, you feel a heaviness in your chest. You still answer, but something has shifted. That heaviness is your shadow speaking. It's saying, I'm tired, I'm resentful. This feels one-sided. But your persona immediately overrides it. Don't be selfish. They need you. Good people show up for their friends. So you push the heaviness down and answer the phone. Shadow work would invite you to honor that heaviness instead of overriding it. To ask it, what are you protecting? What boundary am I crossing by ignoring you? The answer might be, you're giving from emptiness. You're saying yes when you mean no. You're more loyal to their comfort than to your own truth. This doesn't mean you become cold or abandoning. It means you become honest. Maybe you say, I care about you, but I don't have capacity for a full processing session right now. Can we talk for 10 minutes, or can this wait until tomorrow? Maybe you realize this friendship has become a helping dynamic rather than a mutual relationship, and you need to renegotiate the terms. Shadow work for empaths involves some uncomfortable questions. Get your journal again and sit with these. What anger am I not admitting to myself? Who am I resenting and why? What would I do if I let myself be selfish for a day? What needs have I been ignoring? What would happen if I said no more or often? What am I afraid people would think if I stopped being so available? If I couldn't help anyone, would I still have value? What does my tiredness need me to know? Write your answers without censoring. Let the ugly thoughts come. Let the unacceptable feelings have their say. This is the negredo stage, the blackening, the composting of old identities. It feels dark because you're facing what you've been taught to hide. But here's what happens when you do this work: the feelings lose their charge. Resentment acknowledged becomes information about your boundaries. Anger given space becomes energy for change. Needs spoken aloud become requests instead of silent martyrdom. The shadow, once integrated, becomes a source of strength rather than a hidden saboteur. These questions will probably trigger resistance. That resistance is important information. Where you feel defensive, there's often a shadow element waiting to be integrated. Notice where you want to skip a question, where you feel the urge to write what sounds good rather than what's true. That's the edge of your current consciousness. That's where the work is. The third practice involves working with your dreams and the dreamlike quality of 3 a.m. consciousness. Jung wrote, "The dream is the small hidden door in the deepest and most intimate sanctum of the soul." When you wake at 3 a.m., you're in a liminal state, not quite dreaming, not quite fully conscious. This is actually a gift. In this state, your psyche might offer you symbols or images. Maybe you'll have a recurring feeling like being trapped or drowning or carrying something impossibly heavy. These aren't literal. They're symbolic communications from your unconscious. Common symbols for empaths include water imagery, especially drowning or being pulled under. This represents being overwhelmed by emotion. Carrying heavy objects or people on your back, this symbolizes the burden of emotional labor. Invisible barriers or glass walls, this represents the isolation that comes from always being the helper, but never the helped. Houses with rooms you've never explored, this represents unexplored parts of your own psyche. When these images or feelings arise at 3 a.m., don't dismiss them. Ask them what they want to show you. In your journal, complete sentences like, "This feeling of drowning is trying to tell me," or "The weight I'm carrying represents." Let your unconscious fill in the blanks. Now here's something crucial. Not every 3 a.m. wake-up is a profound spiritual communication. Sometimes it's anxiety. Sometimes it's too much caffeine. Sometimes it's a genuine sleep disorder that needs medical attention. The integration of Carl Jung, empath, and personal development means being grounded in both psychological insight and practical reality. So how do you tell the difference? Ask yourself, is this wake-up accompanied by a feeling of urgency, but not panic? Does it feel like something is trying to get my attention rather than something being wrong? Do I feel more contemplative than anxious? Is there a sense of something important being just out of reach? If yes, it's likely a psyche communication. If instead you're feeling heart racing, panic, catastrophic thinking, or physical symptoms of acute anxiety, that's different. That might need support from a therapist or sleep specialist. Here's another way to discern. Write down what comes up during these wake-ups for a week. Do you see patterns? Do similar themes emerge? Do specific memories or feelings repeat? If yes, your unconscious is trying to communicate something specific. If it's random worry spirals that change every night, you might be dealing with anxiety that needs different support. And sometimes, and this is important, it's both. You might have clinical anxiety that needs treatment and unconscious material trying to surface. They're not mutually exclusive. The work Jung invites us into isn't about choosing between psychological insight and practical care. It's about honoring both. One woman I spoke with described her 3 a.m. wake-ups this way. For months, I'd wake up with my heart racing, feeling like I'd forgotten something crucial. I tried everything: therapy, medication, and sleep studies. Nothing helped completely. Then one night, instead of fighting it, I asked out loud, "What do you need me to know?" And immediately, a memory came up of the last time I'd advocated for myself at work 3 years ago. I'd been steamrolled in a meeting and never spoke up again. My psyche was saying, "You've been silent too long. You're suffocating us." She started speaking up at work. Small things at first, disagreeing in meetings, saying when timelines were unrealistic, asking for what she needed. The wake-ups didn't stop immediately, but they changed quality. Less panic, more check-in. Her unconscious was monitoring whether she'd keep the promises she made at 3 a.m. Another person shared, "I kept waking up at exactly 3:17 a.m., so specific I started to think it meant something mystical. But when I actually sat with it, instead of checking my phone, I realized 3:17 was right after the hour. I used to wake up for night feedings when my kids were babies. My body remembered that time as everyone needs me. My psyche was asking, do you still believe your only value is meeting others' needs because your kids are teenagers now? You can stop. You're allowed to sleep." These aren't mystical revelations. They're the unconscious using whatever symbols and memories it has to communicate one essential message. Something in your life is out of alignment with your truth, and it needs attention. The work Jung invites us into isn't about pathologizing every experience. It's about developing discernment, learning to read your own psychological weather. One of the most important shifts for empaths is redefining what compassion actually means. You've probably believed that true compassion means unlimited availability, perfect understanding, and never saying no. But this isn't compassion. It's self-abandonment disguised as virtue. Real compassion, the kind Jung's work points toward, includes yourself in the circle of care. It has boundaries. It knows its limits. It can say, "I can't hold this for you right now," without guilt or shame. There's a reason Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." The pain he's referring to isn't the pain of staying stuck that's just suffering. He means the pain of growth, the discomfort of transformation, the awkwardness of learning new ways of being. For you, this might mean the pain of disappointing someone by setting a boundary, the discomfort of letting someone solve their own problem instead of jumping in, the awkwardness of saying, "I need support right now," instead of always being the supporter. This is good pain. This is growing pain. This is the pain that leads somewhere new. And here's what you need to understand: your sensitivity isn't the problem. Your empathy isn't what needs to be fixed. What needs transformation is the unconscious belief that your sensitivity requires you to dissolve yourself for others. You can be deeply feeling and firmly boundaried. You can be compassionate and self-protective. You can sense others' pain without taking responsibility for fixing it. These aren't contradictions. They're integration. When you wake at 3 a.m. now, you have choices you didn't have before. You can meet that wakefulness as an invitation rather than an intrusion. You can ask what needs attention. You can journal, breathe, sit with whatever arises. You can thank your psyche for being persistent enough to get your attention. Over time, something shifts. The wake-ups might become less frequent, not because you've suppressed what needs attention, but because you've started listening during the day. You've made space for the unconscious to speak at times that aren't 3 a.m. Or the wake-ups might continue, but they change quality. They become less distressing and more like check-ins. Your psyche touching base, making sure you're still on track, still honoring the integration work. Either way, you're no longer at war with your own depths. Jung spent his entire career describing a process he called individuation, and the lifelong journey of becoming who you actually are, as opposed to who you've been conditioned to be. For empaths, this journey has a particular shape. Individuation doesn't mean becoming isolated or selfish. It doesn't mean shutting down your sensitivity or closing your heart. It means something far more nuanced. It means becoming differentiated. It means knowing where you end and others begin. It means being able to feel with someone without becoming them. The word Jung used was crucial. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Privilege. Not burden, not obligation, not something you have to earn through perfect behavior. Privilege. It's your birthright to be yourself. For so long, you've believed that being yourself with needs, limits, desires, anger, boundaries would make you unlovable. That the only acceptable version of you is the one who serves, accommodates, understands, and never asks for too much. But this version isn't actually you. It's a construction, a persona so well crafted that you forgot it was a mask. And individuation is the process of gently, persistently, courageously removing that mask and discovering what's underneath. What you'll find might surprise you. Underneath the helper, there might be an artist who stopped creating because others' needs always came first. Underneath the understanding one, there might be someone with strong opinions and clear boundaries. Underneath the person who never gets angry, there might be a fierce protector who's been waiting for permission to emerge. This is the gold Jung talked about in his alchemical metaphors. Not some transcendent perfection, but your particular, irreplaceable, authentic self. And here's what happens when you begin to individuate your relationship with 3 a.m. changes. Some people report that the wake-ups decrease because they've started honoring what the wake-ups were trying to teach. They've integrated the shadows, strengthened their boundaries, and made space for their own emotional reality. Others find that the wake-ups continue, but transform into something else entirely, a sacred time for contemplation, creativity, or communion with deeper parts of themselves. What was once a distress signal becomes an invitation to depth. This is what it means to befriend your unconscious rather than fear it. Living as what Jung would call a conscious empath, someone who honors their sensitivity while maintaining their wholeness, requires daily practice. It's not a destination you reach and then you're done. It's a way of being you choose again and again. This means checking in with yourself as often as you check in with others. It means asking, what do I need right now, with the same concern you'd ask someone else? It means noticing when you're about to say yes from obligation rather than genuine desire, and giving yourself permission to pause. Let me give you some specific practices that translate Jung's depth psychology into daily life. These aren't quick fixes or superficial techniques. They're ways of maintaining conscious relationship with your unconscious ways of honoring the lessons your 3 a.m. wake-ups have been teaching. The morning boundary setting practice. Before you check your phone, before you engage with anyone else's energy, place your hand on your heart and ask, what are my non-negotiables today? What do I need to preserve my energy? Maybe it's no back-to-back conversations. Maybe it's saying no to one request. Maybe it's taking lunch alone. Name it, claim it, protect it. This is your persona serving yourself instead of betraying it. The emotional inventory. Set 3 alarms throughout your day, morning, midday, evening. When they go off, pause for 60 seconds and ask, what am I feeling right now? Is this feeling mine? Or did I absorb it from someone else? This practice trains you to differentiate between your emotional reality and the emotional weather you've picked up from others. Over time, you'll start catching absorption in real time instead of carrying it into the night. The energy audit. At the end of each week, review your calendar and interactions. Notice patterns. Which relationships consistently leave you depleted? Which activities refill you versus drain you? Where are you giving from fullness versus emptiness? This isn't about becoming selfish. It's about becoming strategic with your finite energy. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't give authentically when you're running on fumes. The permission slips. Write yourself literal permission slips and keep them visible. I have permission to disappoint people. I have permission to change my mind. I have permission to prioritize my rest. I have permission to feel anger without fixing it immediately. These might sound silly, but they work. They give your conscious mind something to hold on to when the old programming tries to take over. It means feeling others' emotions without believing you're responsible for fixing them. It means offering presence without offering rescue. It means understanding that your care for someone doesn't require you to carry what's theirs to carry. Here's a crucial distinction: empathy versus enmeshment. Empathy says, I feel your pain and I'm here with you. Enmeshment says, your pain is my pain and I must fix it to feel okay myself. Empathy has a boundary. Enmeshment has none. The conscious empath learns to stay in empathy without crossing into enmeshment. You can sit with someone in their darkness without becoming darkness yourself. You can witness their struggle without making it your responsibility to end their struggle. This isn't coldness. It's actually deeper love, because you're trusting them to navigate their own journey while offering your presence as support, not as rescue. This is the integration of Carl Jung empath and personal development in lived form, not theory, but practice. Not philosophy, but the daily choice to honor both your sensitivity and your sovereignty. You'll still feel deeply. That won't change, and it shouldn't. Your sensitivity is a gift, even when it's difficult. But now you'll feel deeply while remaining rooted in yourself. You'll still care about others, but now you'll care about yourself with equal importance. The people in your life might have to adjust. Some will celebrate this change. Others, especially those who benefited from your boundaryless giving, might resist. They might say you've changed, become selfish, are no longer the person they knew. And they're right, you have changed. You've become more yourself. This is the necessary loss that comes with individuation. Not everyone can come with you into your wholeness. And that's okay. It's painful, but it's okay. What replaces those relationships is something more authentic. People who love you for who you are, not for what you do for them. Relationships based on mutuality rather than one-directional caretaking. Connections where you can be both strong and vulnerable, both giving and receiving. This is what your soul was calling you toward at 3 a.m. This wholeness, this integration, this fierce tenderness that protects itself as carefully as it protects others. When Jung wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes," he was pointing to exactly this. The dream is believing that your value comes from outside yourself, from how much you can give, how much you can hold, how much you can endure. The awakening is realizing that your value is intrinsic. You don't earn it. You don't maintain it through performance. You simply have it by virtue of being alive. Your 3 a.m. wake-ups have been training you in this awakening. Each time you've lain there in the dark, each time you've wrestled with the discomfort, each time you've heard the whisper of your own abandoned needs, you've been learning to look inside. And the more you look inside, the more you awake. Not just at 3 a.m., but in your whole life. You begin to notice when you're performing care versus genuinely feeling it. You catch yourself before automatically saying yes. You feel the difference between guilt and actual responsibility. You recognize when someone is asking for your energy versus truly connecting with you. This discernment is the fruit of your nighttime training. The soul's persistent knocking has taught you to pay attention to what's real. So if you wake tonight at 3 a.m., don't despair. Don't see it as failure or brokenness. See it as your psyche's profound loyalty to your wholeness. See it as the self, that deeper organizing intelligence Jung described, refusing to let you abandon yourself again. Sit up, breathe, maybe light a candle. Ask what needs attention. Journal if words come. Sit in silence if they don't. Thank your unconscious for its persistence. Thank your sensitivity for trying to teach you about your own depths. Here's a practice for these sacred hours. Create what I call a 3 a.m. ritual. Keep a journal, a pen, and a small light by your bed. When you wake, don't fight it. Instead, move through these steps. Acknowledge, I'm awake. Something in me needs attention. I'm listening. Ask, what wants to be known right now? Then write whatever comes, even if it seems random or doesn't make immediate sense. Honor. If a memory surfaces, honor it. If a feeling emerges, name it. If a need speaks, acknowledge it. Don't judge, analyze, or dismiss. Just receive. Integrate before returning to sleep, or if sleep doesn't come before starting your day, place your hand on your heart and say, I hear you. I'm making space for this. We're doing this together. This simple ritual transforms the wake-up from an intrusion into a conversation. Over weeks and months, you'll notice patterns. You'll see what your unconscious keeps trying to tell you. And you'll develop trust that these wake-ups are guidance, not punishment. Some people ask, how long will this last? When will I sleep through the night again? The answer isn't simple because it depends on how willing you are to change what the wake-ups are revealing. If you keep ignoring the messages, your psyche will keep sending them. But if you start making different choices, setting boundaries, honoring needs, integrating shadow, the urgency decreases. For some, the wake-ups eventually fade as the unconscious material becomes conscious. For others, they transform into a cherished practice, a sacred time for depth work, creativity, or spiritual connection. What was once distressing becomes devotional. And know this, you are not alone in these dark hours. Across the world, other sensitive souls are waking too, feeling the same call, wrestling with the same questions, learning the same lessons about wholeness. Think about that for a moment. Right now, as you read this, there are countless people lying awake at 3 a.m., feeling the knock of their own souls. Some are empaths like you, carrying the weight of others' emotions. Some are caregivers exhausted from always being strong. Some are people pleasers terrified of disappointing anyone. Some are seekers who've lost themselves in serving everyone else. You're part of an invisible community, united not by geography, but by this shared experience of being called home to yourselves. And perhaps this is part of why it happens at 3 a.m. specifically. In the deep night when the world is quiet and you feel most alone, you're actually part of this global congregation of awakening souls. Your heart has been a hearth for so many others. Now it's time to let it be a home for you first. Not instead of others, but before others. Not to exclude, but to include yourself in your own circle of care. There's a beautiful paradox in this work. You might fear that becoming more boundaried, more self-protective, more conscious of your needs will make you less compassionate, less loving, less valuable to others. But the opposite is true. When you stop giving from depletion, your giving becomes cleaner. When you stop rescuing from compulsion, your support becomes more empowering. When you stop absorbing everyone's emotions, your presence becomes steadier. You become like a lighthouse, rooted in your own foundation, shining light, without being consumed by the darkness you illuminate. People who truly value you will welcome this transformation. They'll celebrate your boundaries because they want you whole, not depleted. They'll respect your limits because they love you, not just what you do for them. The relationships that deepen through your individuation are the ones worth keeping. The soul isn't calling you away from compassion. It's calling you toward a more complete compassion, one that includes you. It's calling you to be tender with yourself, boundaried with others, and whole in your own being. 3 a.m. is no longer the enemy. It's the devoted teacher who refused to give up on you, who kept knocking until you finally answered, who loved you enough to disturb your sleep in service of your awakening. Answer the call. The soul knows what it's doing, and you, the real you, beneath all the performing and pleasing, you've been waiting for this homecoming. Welcome home. If you've made it this far, something in you recognizes this truth. You've felt the call maybe for years, maybe just starting to hear it now. Either way, you're at a threshold. The work ahead isn't easy. Individuation never is. It requires you to disappoint people, to let go of identities you've held for decades, to sit with uncomfortable feelings instead of immediately fixing or numbing them. It asks you to be loyal to yourself with the same fierce devotion you've shown to others. But here's what makes it worth it. On the other side of this work is freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to be who you actually are. To feel deeply without drowning. To give generously without depleting. To love fully without losing yourself. Your 3 a.m. wake-ups are an invitation into this freedom. They're uncomfortable because all growth is uncomfortable. They're persistent because your soul is persistent. They're valuable because you are valuable not for what you do, but for who you are. So tonight, if you wake, remember, this is not insomnia. This is initiation. This is your psyche's refusal to let you settle for a half-lived life. This is love in its most demanding form. The love that insists you become whole. And if you need support on this journey, seek it. Find a therapist who understands depth psychology. Connect with others doing this work. Join communities where sensitivity is honored, not pathologized. Read Jung's work directly, not the simplified social media versions, but his actual writings where the real depth lives. You don't have to do this alone. In fact, you can't. Individuation happens in relationship with your own depths, yes, but also relationship with others who see and honor your wholeness. The midnight call is waiting for your answer. Not tonight necessarily, but whenever you're ready. And when you do answer, when you finally turn toward your own soul with the care you've given everyone else, everything changes. The empath awakens. Not just at 3 a.m., but in life itself. And that awakening, that's what Jung spent his entire life pointing toward. That's the gold hidden in the darkness. That's the prize worth every uncomfortable night. Your soul is calling. It's been calling. Will you finally pick up